You've seen it. Everyone has. You look up at the clouds, and one looks like a dog. You spill some coffee, and the splash looks like a map. You stare at the front of a car and see a smiling face. Or, you look at a piece of wood grain and see a screaming ghost. Most of all, you see faces. They appear in burnt toast, in electrical outlets, in the texture of a concrete wall. It's not a real face. But you can't unsee it. This thing has a name. It's called pareidolia. It's the tendency to see patterns, especially faces, in random or ambiguous things. It's not a disorder, it's not a sign of anything wrong with you. In fact, it's a sign that your brain is working exactly as it should. It's a byproduct of having a brain that is incredibly good at one particular thing. And that thing is finding patterns. Your brain is a pattern matching machine. That's its main job. From the moment you're born, it's taking in a flood of information. Sights, sounds, smells, textures. It's all just noise at first. But the brain's job is to turn that noise into meaning. It does this by finding patterns and making connections. A certain sound means your mother is near. A certain shape means food. A sharp, loud noise means potential danger. This is how we learn. It's how we make sense of the world. Without this ability, the world would just be a chaotic, overwhelming mess of raw data. The brain gets really, really good at this. It becomes so good that it starts to get a little trigger happy. It starts seeing patterns even when they aren't really there. It's like a smoke detector that's a little too sensitive. It might go off when you're just searing a steak, not when the house is actually on fire. But you'd rather have a smoke detector that gives a few false alarms than one that fails to go off during a real fire. The brain works the same way. It operates on a better safe than sorry principle. And of all the patterns it's trained to find, the human face is the most important. From a survival standpoint, nothing is more critical to recognize quickly. Think about our ancestors living out on the savannah hundreds of thousands of years ago. The world was a dangerous place. Being able to spot another living being from a distance was a life or death skill. You had to know instantly if that shape in the tall grass was a rock, a bush, a friendly member of your tribe, or a hungry predator. A face tells you so much. It tells you if something is looking at you. That's the first and most important piece of information. Is its attention on me? The eyes are key. We are wired to find eyes. 2 dots are enough. Once you've established that you're being watched, you need more information, and you need it fast. Is this person a friend or a foe? The expression on their face gives you clues. A smile is different from a snarl. Raised eyebrows mean surprise. A furrowed brow means anger or confusion. These are universal signals we pick up on without even thinking. This need to read faces is baked deep into our evolutionary hardware. A baby, just minutes old, will prefer to look at a paddle with a simple face-like pattern on it over a paddle with the same features scrambled. They haven't been taught this. It's an instinct. We come into the world pre-wired to seek out faces. It's how we bond with our parents. It's how we learn to communicate before we can speak. It's our first and most fundamental social tool, so your brain has this incredibly powerful, highly trained facial recognition software running 24/7. It's constantly scanning the environment for that specific pattern: 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth. The configuration is simple, but to our brain it's a massive red flag that demands attention. This system is so fast and so automatic that it happens before you're even consciously aware of it. There's a specific part of the brain that seems to be heavily involved. It's called the fusiform face area, or FFA. You can think of it as a specialized department in the massive corporation that is your brain. This department's only job is to look for faces. When sensory information from your eyes comes in, it gets routed to different areas for processing. When that information even vaguely resembles a face, the FFA lights up. It gets excited. It sends a signal to the rest of your brain saying, "Hey, I think I see a face over here. Pay attention." And here's the crucial part. The system is biased towards speed, not accuracy. In a survival situation, you don't have time to carefully analyze whether those 2 dark spots in the shadows are really eyes. If you wait to be 100% sure, you might already be lunch. It's much safer to have a false positive, to see a face that isn't there, than to have a false negative, to miss a face that is. A false positive costs you almost nothing. You see a face in a tree trunk, you feel a brief jolt of surprise, you realize it's just bark, and you move on. No harm done. But a false negative could cost you everything. You dismiss that shadowy figure as just a rock, but it turns out to be a leopard, and you don't get a second chance. Every evolution through the brutal process of natural selection favored brains that made the safer mistake. So we ended up with brains that are constantly seeing faces everywhere. Pareidolia is the echo of that ancient survival instinct. It's the ghost in our cognitive machine. This isn't just about seeing static faces either. Our brains are so eager to find meaning that they'll even assign emotions and personalities to these inanimate objects. That electrical outlet doesn't just look like a face, it looks shocked. The front of that car doesn't just have two headlights and a grill, it looks aggressive or happy. We can't help but project human-like qualities onto them. This is called anthropomorphism, and it's deeply connected to pareidolia. We see a face, and our brain's next step is to try and understand its intent, just as we would with a real person. But pareidolia isn't limited to just what we see, it happens with our other senses too. This is called auditory pareidolia. Have you ever heard a faint voice in the hum of an air conditioner? Or thought you heard your name called in the sound of a running shower? That's the same mechanism at work. Your brain's auditory system is designed to pick out meaningful sounds from background noise, and the most meaningful sound of all is the human voice. So, just like the visual system, it sometimes gets it wrong. It finds a voice-like pattern in the random static and presents it to you as a real voice. This was famously demonstrated with the phenomenon of backmasking in music. In the 1970s and 80s, people became convinced that if you played certain rock songs backward, you could hear hidden satanic messages. In reality, the brain was just doing its thing. When presented with garbled, random noise, it desperately tries to find a pattern it recognizes. If you're told to listen for a specific phrase, your brain will latch onto any sound that even remotely resembles it. You're priming your brain to find a pattern, and your brain is more than happy to oblige. It's not a conspiracy in the music, it's a conspiracy in our own heads. The experience of pareidolia can also be influenced by our emotional state. If you're feeling lonely, you might be more likely to see faces in your surroundings. Your brain, on a subconscious level, is craving social connection, so it might dial up the sensitivity of its face detection system. Similarly, if you're scared or anxious, your brain goes on high alert. You're walking alone at night, and every shadow, every rustle of leaves, seems like a potential threat. In this heightened state, your pattern recognition system is working overtime. That gnarled tree stump suddenly looks like a crouching figure. That plastic bag caught on a fence looks like a ghostly apparition. Your brain is preparing you for the worst, even if the threat is imaginary. This tendency has had a massive impact on human culture, religion, and art throughout our entire history. It's not just a modern quirk, it's a fundamental part of the human experience. Take religion, for example. The history of faith is filled with instances of pareidolia. People see the face of Jesus in a piece of toast, the Virgin Mary in a water stain on a highway underpass, or the shape of a deity in the clouds. When this happens, it can feel profoundly real. Because the process is so automatic and subconscious, it doesn't feel like you're trying to see it. It feels like the image is genuinely there, revealed to you. For someone with strong faith, this can be interpreted as a miracle, a sign, a message from the divine. It validates their beliefs in a very powerful, personal way. A community can form around such an image. People make pilgrimages to see the holy tortilla or the sacred tree stump. Pareidolia, in this context, becomes a bridge between the mundane world and the spiritual one. It's also the foundation of many ancient belief systems. Look at the constellations. They are the ultimate example of celestial pareidolia. Ancient cultures all over the world looked up at the same random scatter of stars and connected the dots in different ways. They saw great hunters, bears, queens, and mythical beasts. They didn't just see shapes, they built entire mythologies around them. These star patterns became a calendar, a navigation tool, and a storybook written in the sky. It was a way to impose order and meaning on the vast, chaotic universe. We weren't just living under a random smattering of lights. We were living under the watchful eyes of our gods and heroes. The man in the moon is another universal example. Different cultures see different things. A man, a woman, a rabbit, but almost everyone sees something. The dark patches on the lunar surface, the Maria, are just ancient volcanic plains. But our brains can't accept that. They demand a pattern, and the face is the easiest pattern to find. So we see a face, and we tell stories about it. This same impulse fuels creativity. Artists have known about this for centuries. Leonardo da Vinci famously wrote in his notebooks that artists could find inspiration by looking at stains on a wall or the embers in a fire. He advised them to look at walls patched with stains, or stones of different kinds. You may discover a resemblance to various landscapes, battles, figures in quick motion, strange countenances, and dresses. He understood that the mind, when presented with ambiguity, will create its own images. The artist's job is not always to create something from nothing, but to find the hidden forms that are already there and bring them out. Surrealist artists used this principle explicitly with techniques like automatic drawing, letting their subconscious guide their hand to find forms in random squiggles. Psychology has also harnessed this tendency. The most famous example is the Rorschach inkblot test. A patient is shown a series of symmetrical but completely abstract ink blots and asked what they see. There is no right or wrong answer. The test is designed to be a blank screen onto which the patient projects their own thoughts, fears, and desires. What you see in the ink blot is believed to reveal something about your inner world. The test is a controlled clinical application of pareidolia. It uses our brain's unstoppable need to find meaning and meaninglessness as a window into the psyche. Even in our hyper-modern technological world, pareidolia is everywhere. It has become a form of shared entertainment online. Our entire communities and social media accounts are dedicated to posting pictures of faces and things. A grumpy-looking house, a joyful bell pepper, a terrified briefcase. We share these images because they are universally relatable. They trigger that same little spark of surprise and delight in everyone. It's a small, shared moment of discovery. Do you see it too? It confirms that our brains are all wired in a similar way. Product designers and marketers are also well aware of this phenomenon, and they use it to their advantage. Think about the design of cars. The front of almost every car has a face-like arrangement. 2 headlights for eyes, a grille for a mouth, and a logo for a nose. Designers can manipulate these features to give the car a specific personality. A sports car might have narrow, slanted headlights and a low, wide grille to make it look aggressive and mean. A family-friendly minivan might have large, round headlights and a smiling grille to make it look friendly and safe. We respond to these faces on a subconscious emotional level. We don't consciously think, that car looks angry, but the design influences our perception of the product. This extends to all sorts of other products. The 2 dots and a curved line of the Amazon logo create a subtle smile. The design of a watch face can look like a simple, symmetrical face. Even the layout of a website can use principles of visual hierarchy that mimic the way we scan a human face for information. We are drawn to these patterns even when we don't know why. But what happens when this system doesn't work properly? There are conditions that give us a clue. One is prosopagnosia or face blindness. People with this condition have difficulty recognizing faces, sometimes even their own. And they can see the individual features, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, but their brain can't put them together into a coherent, recognizable whole. They might have to rely on other cues, like a person's hairstyle, voice, or clothing, to identify them. For someone with prosopagnosia, the world can be a confusing and socially anxious place. Their experience highlights just how much the rest of us rely on this automatic, effortless facial recognition system. It's a skill we take for granted until we see what life is like without it. On the other end of the spectrum, some people might experience more pareidolia than others. While it's a universal human trait, its intensity can vary. People who are more creative, more open to new experiences, or perhaps more neurotic might report seeing patterns more frequently. Their brains might be slightly more loosely wired, allowing for more unusual connections to be made between what they see and what they know. But this is still an area of active research. As we move further into the age of artificial intelligence, we are essentially trying to teach machines to have their own form of pareidolia. Early computer vision programs struggled with this. They could be easily fooled. A complex pattern of leaves could be misidentified as a face, while a real face turned at a strange angle might be missed entirely. We are teaching AI to do what our brains do naturally to find meaningful patterns in a messy visual world. Facial recognition software on your phone or on social media works by identifying key landmarks H, the distance between the eyes, the shape of the nose, the curve of the jaw, and comparing that pattern to a database of known faces. In a way, we are building a digital version of our own fusiform face area. And just like our brains, these AI systems can have their own pareidolia moments, seeing faces in wallpaper or misidentifying objects. The challenges we face in developing AI highlight the incredible sophistication of the biological system that we all carry around in our heads. It's a system that has been fine-tuned by millions of years of evolution, so the next time you see a face in the foam of your latte or a figure in the clouds, don't dismiss it as just a weird trick of the light. It's more than that. It's a window into how your brain works. It's a glimpse of an ancient survival mechanism that helped our ancestors navigate a dangerous world. It's the same impulse that led to the creation of myths, constellations, and art. It's a sign that your brain is not a passive receiver of information, but an active, creative interpreter of reality. It's constantly trying to tell a story, to find meaning, to connect the dots. Pareidolia isn't a flaw in the system. It's a feature, it's a playful, imaginative, and sometimes spooky side effect of owning a brain that is desperate to make sense of the universe. It reminds us that we don't just see the world as it is, we see it as we are, and we are, first and foremost, social creatures hardwired to find a face in the crowd, even when the crowd is just a collection of shadows, stains, and stones. It's a beautiful and deeply human glitch.